Hey everyone. So today's video is actually courtesy of a poll I did like a couple months ago now, and I just never got around to doing it. The topic was, am I ready to indie publish? So I basically just thought I would go through a bunch of considerations. Like at the end of the day, only you know if you're ready to indie publish, but there's a bunch of different sort of topics and questions that I would advise that people ask themselves before they, hit the big orange button publish. So the first sort of lot of considerations are pretty much editorial. So is the book the best that you can possibly make it? And what I'm talking about is you don't bang out your first draft and go, yep, that's done. At least that's not how I do it. I do a first draft, then I do a second draft, then I get feedback from beta readers, and I do that twice, and then I go over it again. And it's really only once I get to this point where I have made so many changes, I've gone over it so many times, that I don't know what else I could do to improve it. So that's the point that I personally get to, where I don't know if I'm making it better or worse anymore, or I could just be changing it. Maybe it's not better, maybe it's not worse. I'm just changing it and making it different. So I get to a point where I just can't really fathom making more changes, and I don't know what else I'd do to the manuscript. Then, once I get to that point, as I said, that's when I go to beta readers. Now, I definitely wouldn't be publishing a book that nobody else has read and that nobody else has given me any feedback on. Yeah, it's just not something I do, and I don't know any author who writes their book and then just publishes it. Not any good author anyway. So yeah, is it the best I can make it? And then secondly, has anybody else read it? What was the feedback? Can I make improvements based on that feedback? And then, have you had it, or are you willing to have the book copy edited? Because if you're not, and I know there are budget restrictions and things, but you're only going to be doing your book and you a disservice by putting an unpolished book out on the market. So yeah, whether that means you save up for a copy editor, potentially you join a couple of Facebook groups, maybe you can do some sort of swap. But yeah, all of those are editorial considerations that I would definitely be thinking about, and I want to be at a particular point with all of those three sort of questions before I know that I'm ready to publish. But so, okay, say all three of those, yep, it's the best it can be, yep, I've had beta reader feedback, and yes, I am willing to have it copy edited. Then I would move on to the next thing, which is sort of budget considerations, because in order to produce a professional quality book that can sit alongside the likes of Harry Potter and Game of Thrones, which is, my books have sat alongside those titles, and it's because I put in not just the effort, but the money to have a professionally produced product. So do you have funds for an editor? Do you have funds for a proofreader? Do you have funds for a cover designer? And there are affordable options for these. I would recommend joining a bunch of author Facebook groups, because there are always these options floating around. You can always ask questions. I'm lucky in that I did a Masters of Publishing and I have like a whole education in this industry, and also through that degree I met a load of people. I've met editors and cover designers and people who I've formed relationships with over the years. So all the people that I use in terms of my editing and my cover design, at least for my books so far, it's a bit of a different story with Curse of the Siren Queen, but yeah, they've all been local people who either I've met or have been recommended to me through other people in the industry. But essentially, you have to ask yourself, do I have a budget? What is my budget? And if I can't afford this, then what? What are you going to compromise on, or what are you going to save for? Yeah, I've definitely gone sort of one extreme. I've spent a lot of money on my production, whereas I know a lot of editors who've saved quite a lot of money, but you do need at least a small budget in order to hire these freelancers to make your book as presentable as it possibly can be. Otherwise, it's not going to do well. The next consideration is, I guess, a more general knowledge of the market. So do you know what your comp titles are? And by comp titles, I mean comparative titles. So, for Heart of Mist, the main comp title is Throne of Glass. That's the one that everybody compares it to. And it does have a lot of similarities in terms of its themes and characters and that sort of stuff. So have a think about what your manuscript is about, who's in your manuscript, what's going on, and are there any books that directly inspired it? Can you see it sitting alongside a particular book or a bunch of different books in, say, a bookstore? And those will likely be your comp titles. And so that's important to know in terms of working out where your book fits in its categories. So particularly with independent publishing, categories on Amazon and other e-retailers play a major role in how your book is positioned and sold on the retailer site. So with these comp titles, you can look them up on your chosen retailer and have a look, scroll down to like where the metadata is, and it'll have the various categories, and those categories might give you a good idea of where your book will sit. So when you do go to Indie Publish, you will select categories that you've chosen, and that's a great way of doing that category research and bringing across that knowledge. But you do have to have that knowledge before you're setting up your book, I think. And also another good thing about knowing the market and being really familiar with your comp titles and your categories is being able to sort of identify common themes and common sort of trends and stuff in terms of cover design. So you want, when you publish your book, for your book to sit comfortably alongside other books in that genre. And if you've totally missed the mark on the cover, it's going to look like it doesn't belong there. And there's a difference between standing out and being really eye-catching and maybe having like a different twist on a cover trend compared to literally just having the wrong cover and, potentially people seeing that cover and thinking that your book, it's not epic fantasy, it's about vampires instead or something like that. So that's really important. Having that knowledge of the market is super, super important. And this is all stuff that you can do while you write your book. So, maybe you're sitting in front of the TV and you just have a look on Amazon, like while you're on your computer, and just really become familiar with the categories and the genres and the sort of like styles that you see. That's something that I would really recommend that you become really familiar with before you hit publish as well. So then the last sort of section that I would encourage people to become really knowledgeable about is publishing itself. This is a massive learning curve, really big. So what I would say, like, you're not expected to know everything from the get-go. It's a really steep learning curve. Sorry, I'm just messing up my hair now. So what I would say in this case is that you need a willingness to educate yourself on everything in terms of publishing. So book production, formatting, marketing, all the various retailers and the options in terms of, do you want to be exclusive to Amazon or do you want to go wide? You also have to learn how to advertise. So there are all these, like, within publishing, there are all these other avenues that you've got to teach yourself. So I've been doing this full-time 3 years now, and I've done a couple of courses, I've read a lot of books, but essentially everything I know is self-taught. I've gone out and found out, the best ways to do things, and the best way to do things for the type of product that I'm pushing. So I'm pushing epic fantasy, young adult fantasy, and so I go out and have a look at what my, comp authors are doing, how their books are doing, all that sort of stuff, but it's very much like a self-motivated thing. So in terms of like your knowledge of publishing, obviously it's a constant learning thing. Like, I'm learning new things every day, and I've been doing this for 3 years, and I'm constantly seeking out new learning opportunities. But so if you say you've written a book and you're thinking about indie publishing and all of this is sounding really good to you, what I would recommend is that you go out and either invest in a course, and some of the courses are really expensive, so I can totally understand if that's something that is out of your budget, but what is available are some fantastic free blogs that you can look up. They've got hundreds and thousands of resources. Or you can purchase like an ebook for $2.99 from a bunch of really amazing indie authors who provide lots of really helpful advice. So yeah, if you're considering this, then I would definitely venture into either a course or definitely at least reading a couple of books on the subject. And the last thing that I would question is if this is something like if independent publishing is part of a larger writing career plan, then I would suggest that you have a publishing plan. So it's not really enough to publish one book and then sit back and go, okay, I'm going to wait for the money to roll in now. If this is part of a career move, then you need a business plan. You need to know, like, is this book part of a series? If not, what's the book that comes afterwards? And if it is part of a series, how quickly are you going to be releasing? Will you be releasing wide or in Kindle Unlimited? So yeah, I've kind of just like spewed out a bunch of different things, but, and you know what, this is just the tip of the iceberg really, but they're definitely really important considerations for when you're thinking about whether or not you're ready to indie publish. So yeah, as always, if you've got any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below. You can also private message me if you don't want to publicly be asking stuff. I can totally understand that. But yeah, I hope that helped. Alright, thanks for watching. Bye for now.